Yeah.
Was it an electric iron?
I heard it was a gas iron, and I don't know how that works. But that's what one place I read it was a gas
So it
iron.
wasn't like one of the old-time ones that you would heat over a flame.
I presumed that's what they meant by a gas iron. Is he had a gas stove that was an open flame that he set the steel iron on.
And then heated it up, and then that's probably it. Because I don't know when they came out with electric iron.
I do not believe that there was ever such a thing as a gas iron.
Yeah.
I believe that it is what Devin is saying.
That's what I would think as well.
I was thinking it was a gasoline power thing.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But that also takes credit away from the statements about how long that gas iron was out, because we don't know how hot that device was when he used it.
Well, a gas iron won't scorch fabric. It'll score the time that it is the hottest. Sorry, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit because the next thing you're going to say is the next thing you were going to say, I know because of your script, was that know the iron had not had time to scorch the fabric, right?
Oh, yeah,
so that was supposed to set a timeline. And I'm about to do some Googling, but if it is the kind of old-timey iron that we're talking about, where you set it on a heat source and then you put it the time that it is most likely to scorch the fabric is when you first, because that follows,
that's
right?
when it's hottest.
Yeah, that's when it's hottest.
And then it begins to cool.
Yeah, and so even if it sat on there for a long period of time without moving, it's going to continue to cool. It's not going to eventually scorch. It will scorch immediately or not at all.
That's why electric irons burn things, because they are continually at a consistent temperature.
Yeah.
High temperature.
Which in my case is always too hot because it messes up everything I have. But
I don't know why you do that. It's easy
I don't have an iron
stop
anymore,
ironing
actually.
your T-shirts.
Yeah, I know.
And your socks, man. Yeah. Socks don't need a crease.
There are people out there that do that.
I know.
I met a guy once who obviously ironed his blue jeans because he had a nice sharp crease down the front of his blue jeans.
Have I not ever talked about the cowboys that I used to hang out with that had that? That was a thing in the 90s. Was your Wranglers had to have a seam in the front, and there were guys that you could tell those pants had been ironed 100 times and could never ever be ironed again, and they would still have a hard ridge down the front. Yeah, no, it's a thing.
Okay, I guess it was a thing. Okay.
It's a fashion thing. Right. I don't get that. Devin might, but I don't.
That shows you how ignorant I am. Okay. All right. So anyway, but enough about the iron. But it looks like though he was still doing some work. He's doing some work. He's interrupted. He's killed. But robbery or burglary was not the motive, and so police were puzzled about this. They talked to everybody he knew, which is the customers and neighbors and stuff like that. And he had no known enemies as far as anybody knew. And of course, as I already said, we really don't know that nothing was taken. I mean, there might have been something really valuable in there. And so maybe it's something so valuable the killer grabbed it and didn't bother looking for anything else to take. Didn't go through the cash drawer.
There's another story that we're going to be covering soon that I have the same question, which is the perpetrator may have found the initial stash or a stash of many and thinking, I found the treasure trove, booked it.
Yeah.
But didn't get all of the treasure because they left too soon.
That's why when you're hiding your treasure, your cash, whatever, you don't put it all in one place.
Yeah.
You don't want to do that. Yeah.
Too many eggs in one basket.
No, exactly. But of course, the one thing they found out from talking to everybody is that they said, especially his customers, they said he'd been a little paranoid for about the past year. Said he kept his door locked even during business hours. And he would only let people in that he recognized. And he told them
that can't be conducive to a profitable business.
Well, it's kind of annoying for your customers to have to stand out there knocking on the door, especially if it's raining. Well,
even if they're in the apartment hallway, but if it's somebody he doesn't know and he's like, I'm not taking your clothes. Dude, I've been living down the street for a month and I've never come here. I'm trying to give you business. He's like, I don't know, you go away.
Well, yeah, I mean, on the other hand, like, there are plenty of businesses, especially one like this, that he could have been at his capacity. He could have been literally washing as many clothes as he possibly could have.
I will give him that.
And said, like, listen, I have my repeat customers. I'm making a fine living. And also I'm terrified and paranoid and whatever. Yeah. So I am just only going to let people that I recognize in, and that's that.
Maybe.
Okay. That's certainly possible.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah, or it is possible that something happened within the past year to cause this change of behavior. There was nobody, as far as they knew, reported that he had been robbed or assaulted.
But he would have to have reported that.
But yeah, it's true.
To somebody.
Yeah, he didn't say anything to anybody about that, though. But who knows? Maybe somebody was out to get him. I mean, maybe like I said, maybe he did actually find a Maltese falcon in a flea market or something like that, and he had it, and he was really paranoid about it.
He could, or maybe he found the gas-operated iron that Devin just found on the internet and waved at us that actually exists. And he was like, "The future is coming for me."
The gas iron.
I mean, he could have also it happens plenty that he could have had a mental health breakdown.
There's also that.
He could have already been a little paranoid, and that he just had some sort of a breakdown that was maybe triggered by something, but also maybe triggered by nothing. And that he just suddenly became a very paranoid human being because his mental health had deteriorated to a certain extent.
That's possible.
Which happens.
Or
a lot, actually, unfortunately.
And so it could have been that. It could have been that it really was. Maybe he heard about some robberies and that sort of scared him. Or maybe there were neighborhood mobsters that were offering him protection and he wasn't paying them money for protection,
And they don't like it when you don't accept their protection.
No, they don't.
Maybe
really
he had his first run-in with an insurance salesman. Boy, sure is a nice laundromat you've got here. It'd be a shame if something happened to it.
Could you imagine if this burned down?
With that gas power.
All the way. With you in it. And no financial compensation.
Why would I want it if I'm dead? Never mind, just pass.
You would, wouldn't you?
That's the way it worked in those days, and probably still does in many parts of the world.
That's how AAA has been around this long.
But the whole big trick with this thing, right, is that yes, it would be cool to know who did it and why. But the how is bigger, right?
Yeah, how did he do it?
Yeah, that's actually the larger question.
That's
really nobody really cares about
which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
certainly. Nobody cares about who killed him.
They want to know about
why.
how the killer did it.
Yeah,
I know. Which is what I want to know too. It's like I said, total locked door mystery.
Which was the thing we had talked about with the Wallace case
Julie Wallace
as well.
Thing,
was they were like, well, we're pretty sure that she did it, and we don't really care about why or if she actually did. We just care that
Hugues de la Plaza, because they were like, oh no, he did it. It's fine. Whatever.
Suicide.
Everyone was like, we don't really care why.
Yeah.
Just how.
Yeah.
How?
So help us understand some of the scenario that they find, Joe.
So, let's see what we got here. We got the doors and windows secured from the inside.
Yep.
The windows, of course, with nails. The doors were bolted, which, as we mentioned, could be a steel bar, just a slide into position kind of bolt with no key.
It could also be a deadbolt with a key.
Yeah, deadbolt, or not even not a key operated one, with just a little handle on the inside. Or you could have had a regular old door lock, and you guys have probably all seen these. I've got them in my house. They're the kind that have the plate with, at the top there's a knob, and then below that there's a keyhole that's shaped like a keyhole.
Yeah. That's why it's called keyhole.
Exactly. And you stick your old-fashioned key in there to lock or unlock it. And to lock it, you close the door at night, and you stick your key in there, turn it 360 degrees.
You're talking skeleton key, by the way.
Skeleton key, yeah. Turn it 360 degrees, and then pull it back out, and your door is locked. He's throwing the deadbolt, right? But a lot of people in those days would leave the key in because the keyhole goes all the way through, so people can peek through it.
And some plates would have a swing plate that would cover the keyhole for privacy, but that was an additional cost, so very few had that.
And another thing too is that those old-fashioned locks actually were not that incredibly hard to pick. So that's another reason.
There's a reason that a skeleton key is called skeleton key, and it's that many of the keys worked.
Yeah, exactly.
You can kind of buy
a generic key.
It probably kind of works for most. I mean, they like 3 tumblers or something. It was super easy.
Yeah, they were easy to pick, and so the idea.
For those of you wondering, I'm sorry, just to interrupt. For those of you wondering, Joe has other locks on his door now.
Oh yeah,
you can't just break into his house.
Yeah, no, you can't. Those are just internal locks, but the not the exterior ones, but. So when you want to lock up at night, in this case, what you do is you turn it 360 degrees, But instead of pulling it out, you turn it about another 90 degrees.
90 or 180, one of the two.
Yeah, right in there, and just leave the key in.
So it locks it in place.
Yeah.
The teeth are now barred.
Yeah, somebody can't just push it out from the other side.
Right, they're lodged against the interior of the frame of the locking mechanism, which stops them from just being pushed out.
Yeah, and so it was very common. I think probably more often than not, people did this. They left the key in the lock.
Yeah.
And so
also helps you not forget your key when you leave.
Yeah, that's another good point. And
it's very hard to leave the house if the door is locked with the key in it.
Yeah, and
you have to have it in your hand as you walk out.
Yeah, and I think this is probably what happened, because I in one account that I did read that the door had been locked and the key had been left in the lock on the inside. But again, I'm not 100% sure.
There's so many accountings though in the story; it's difficult to say.
I know, but.
But you did say that there were extra bolts on the door.
I believe there was at least one extra bolt on each door. Yeah. But
whether that was the true slide or a bar drop-in U-shaped blocks for a bolt, like you see the old castle door blocks.
Yeah.
A deadbolt could be a lot of things in the reporting.
Yeah, and so I don't think it was anything quite that elaborate, although it could have been.
Well, that's not very elaborate. That's a really simple system.
It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's a good point.
It is. It's simple, but there have been. I mean, you can look up on YouTube. Even there are ways to pick those skeleton key locks with the keys in them.
Oh yeah.
Or to relock the door from the exterior.
Yes.
Yeah.
Harder to do with a slide bolt.
Well,
so that's why I'm just
the drop-in bar system.
Right, and so that's why I'm just bringing that up, is that it was a slide bolt that probably had to be locked from the inside.
It probably was, and the reason I would say that is because the police spent a lot of time thinking about this, so they probably would have thought of just all the permutations about this. The police, like I said, they investigated this and then went over it very thoroughly, and the best they could come up with is that the murderer was somebody very small, thin, and very agile, who shot Fink and somehow crawled out through the transom window, and their support for that was that one of the hinges on the transom was broken. So maybe somebody forced his way through that window.
But it also sounds like he didn't live in the most well-maintained space.
Yeah, and that's true too, or it could be too. Let's not forget the policeman did boost a kid up and shove him through the transom window.
Right.
So
but worth mentioning that, and we don't know what the kid did, as soon as they dropped in, but
could have run around, picked up all the gold coins he found on the ground, and then unlocked
or if
door.
There was a chair or something, but you would need some kind of boosting mechanism.
To climb out
to get
Yeah, you would.
That would have probably still been sitting there.
Yeah, it would be.
Well, it's convenient. There's a chair right in here. I'll just jump onto that.
Yeah.
Kids are dumb.
Yeah.
You drop onto the chair and then scoot it out of the way to open the door.
12-year-old kid, they don't know what to look for or what to think about recording in their memory. Totally.
I don't even know if this kid was 12. 12 years old might have been too big to fit through this transom window. There was some suggestion that maybe the killer fired through the transom window itself. So he gets out. The killer sneaks up in Fink's apartment, bringing a chair with him or something like that.
Or a ladder.
Or a ladder or something, or a crate. Sets it down, stands on top.
The great ladder killer of 1929.
Yeah. And then shoots down through the transom and kills Fink. There was a problem with that, and the coroner said that the angle of the bullet wounds, it appeared that the killer was standing face to face and at the same level.
And there was those burns.
And there were also the powder burns on his hand also. So that kind of shot the hell out of that. And
no pun intended.
Yeah, the windows were intact, so he hadn't been shot from outside through a window either. And of course, that's the whole powder burn on the hand thing kind of rules that out too. But another question is that somebody somehow shot him and got out of the room, leaving it locked from the inside. But the other question I have is that why? Why do you do that?
Not why do you kill him, but why?
Why go to the trouble of, unless you're maybe some sort of true crime mystery aficionado?
It was you.
Yeah, it could have been, or it was you.
You're old enough.
Yeah. No, I'm not old enough.
He just mouthed the word that we can't use.
Bleep out.
Yeah. But I don't know. I mean, the only reason I can think of is that, other than being a true crime aficionado, is that maybe the idea was to get the cops so puzzled over that they'd be puzzling over that part of the mystery and forget to go out and look for who.
Well, that seemed to have worked, right?
Apparently, I think they did look for his killer. They at least talked to enough neighbors and acquaintances and stuff to try to figure out, the usual way you solve murder is who wanted to kill this guy? that's your murderer probably. And they did that. They did their due diligence. I guess another reason I can think of is that, like, well, you could always say to the jury, it's like, do I look like Houdini? Do I look like I could have fit through that transom window to you? You know, and maybe, you know, if you get caught.
I'm a 200-pound dude. There's no way I could have done that.
Yeah, so there are some theories out there. Believe me, kind of a lot of theories, actually. And so we're going to talk about that. But first, let's take a break.
Hey, guys. For those of you who know Joe well, and that's most of you, you know there's only one thing that Joe hates more than shopping, and that's shopping for cleaning products. I mean, let me tell you, Joe does not like spending time in the store or waiting in line or figuring out if he got the best deal, but he does care about what's being used in his house, because the cats, which is why he joined Grove Collaborative. Grove sells only the best non-toxic products and ships them right to his door when he wants them. He actually got his first box from them last month, and it could not have been easier. Actually, I also got one, and I thought I'd just pick up some natural cleaner to replace my Windex and ended up with these amazingly cool wool dryer balls, and damn, my clothes smell really good, and they're super static free. I mean, listen to me, I'm talking about dryer balls when I should be talking about Joe's dryer balls. If you haven't already tried Grove, you really should. And all of our listeners who sign up get an amazing $30 Mrs. Meyer's gift set and a free 30-day VIP membership and a bonus gift just for you when you sign up and place an order of $20 or more. Check out Grove and the Thinking Sideways special offer at grove.co, that's not com, .co/sideways. That's grove.co, not .com/sideways.
And we're back. All right, so our first theory, this is actually, I found this at least one place on the interwebs, which is that this was not actually a big mystery at all. It was just basically kind of an urban legend / built from, misreporting by the media or police incompetence.
Yeah.
So it's a sloppy story turned into a legend.
Yeah, and so there was one commenter I saw, I think it was on Reddit, that said that the killer probably just had a copy of the key, so he just, killed him and locked the door from the outside when he left. Which would be pretty easy.
If the key was not actually in the door, I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, and so that makes sense, except that it kind of assumes that the police were morons. I mean, right?
Well,
true.
I mean, a little bit, but again, we are admitting one thing here.
Omitting?
No, we're admitting one thing here, and that is that a small child was sent through into the crime scene before anyone else, right?
Yeah.
So they had to take on faith that that small child said, the door was bolted.
Yeah.
And the key was in the lock. I mean, you could see the key was in the lock, or it wasn't, and whatever. But, maybe it was locked, and you could actually see through to the crime scene, but they assumed there was these extra bolts that were bolted, and the kid said, yeah, it was bolted. Of course it was.
Well, yeah, but in those days, I don't think the kid would just turn the key and unlocked it and left the key in there. I don't see why he would have removed it and then lied about there being a key in there.
No, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, it's curiosity killed the cat. Literally, the kid could have got in and stood there and pulled the key out and looked around for a minute, and then somebody bangs on the door, hey kid, what's going on? Open up the door.
Yeah.
And then went, oh, oops.
Right.
Opens it up and, sorry.
Yeah.
And if the key is the whole thing, I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, the key is literally the key to the story.
Right.
It had to be there for the kid to turn it and unlock it.
Yes. Yeah, or things had to be bolted on the other side or whatever.
Something.
But if there was a little bit of misreporting on his end where he was like, they opened the door and saw all the bolts and said, oh, these must have all been bolted.
Yeah.
But they weren't. And
Maybe
it was
not
just
all.
a key. And there are some other, as we're going to discuss in a minute, there are some other ways that you could have locked the door with the key.
From the outside.
Blah, blah.
But
I mean,
I
just
don't think so. I'm sure they grilled the kid pretty well.
I'm really just playing devil's advocate here, but I will just say, it's long enough ago that there could be some room for something.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they went over it pretty carefully.
You would hope.
They did, because they spent some time on this one, actually, the police did. So I think it's probably a safe assumption that there really truly was some sort of a bolt that was thrown from the inside, or a key in the lock on the other side or something that made them believe that. Although, like you said, the kid could have somehow said something, misreported it, but you would think that they would have sat him down and really straightened that, gotten that story straightened out. And
you would think, but again, we don't know how old the kid was.
Yeah.
And the younger the kid, oftentimes there's just some kind of, if a police officer says to them, and all the bolts were locked, right? And the kid would say, yes, sir.
And that is also the problem, is that this was an era where crime scene, as we've talked about before, crime scenes weren't protected. Police said whatever they wanted to the news agencies to get a buck.
Yeah.
And so they could have just started saying, it was so weird, it was completely locked. When in fact, it wasn't. And we're going to talk about this a bajillion times in this story, but there is a